Cheating scandals have long marred the beautiful game, and Scottish football is no exception. Beneath the surface lies a darker narrative of deceit and corruption that has shaped the game in ways that few would imagine. But just how scandalous is the history of cheating in Scottish football, and does it still exist today? Join us as we find out. This is the entire history of cheating in Scottish football. In the early 20th century, Scottish football clubs were bound by a strict wage cap set by the Scottish Football Association, otherwise known as the SFA. This maximum wage was designed to ensure parity amongst clubs and prevent financial domination by wealthier teams. But rumours persisted that clubs like Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs were circumventing these rules by paying their players under the table. The practice of under-the-table payments became an open secret within Scottish football. Star players were often offered bonuses or additional incentives that were not declared to the SFA. This allowed clubs to attract top talent whilst technically adhering to the wage cap. But the situation became so widespread that it threatened to undermine the integrity of the competition as wealthier clubs gained an unfair advantage. One example was in the 1920s, when Rangers and Celtic were suspected of providing housing and job opportunities to players and their families as a means of supplementing their wages. These under-the-table deals were difficult to prove, but the whispers of corruption were enough to cast a shadow over the sport. Fans and officials alike knew that something was amiss, but concrete evidence remained elusive. The wage cap was finally abolished in 1961, allowing clubs to pay their players openly and competitively. But whilst this brought an end to one form of cheating, it also marked the beginning of a new era where financial muscle could more overtly dictate success on the pitch. The abolition of the wage cap was a double-edged sword, solving one problem whilst potentially creating another. The lifting of the wage cap brought new challenges, but the most fiercely contested fixture in Scottish football, the Old Firm derby between Rangers and Celtic, saw its own dark days. The 1960s and 1970s were marred by allegations of referee corruption, adding fuel to the intense rivalry and sectarian tensions between the two clubs. During this period, both Rangers and Celtic fans felt aggrieved by decisions that appeared to go against them in crucial matches. Controversial penalties, dubious offside calls and questionable red cards became the norm in Old Firm derbies. But one infamous incident in 1970 saw Celtic denied a clear penalty in a match that ended in a draw, sparking outrage amongst their supporters and accusations of biased officiating. The SFA faced mounting pressure to address these allegations. Investigations were launched, but proving referee corruption was a challenging task. The referees themselves denied any wrongdoing, and without concrete evidence, nothing was ever proved. But despite this, the perception of corruption persisted, damaging the reputation of the SFA. The controversy reached a peak in 1978, when a former referee claimed in an interview that he had been pressured to favour Rangers in several matches. Although these claims were never substantiated, they fueled the belief that corruption was rife within the sport. Whilst referee corruption in domestic football was a major concern, the international stage presented its own scandals. The 1978 World Cup in Argentina was supposed to be a showcase for Scotland's footballing talent, but it became a nightmare for one player. Willie Johnston, a winger for West Brom at the time, was sent home in disgrace after failing a drug test. Johnston tested positive for a banned stimulant, phencamphetamine, a substance that he claimed was part of a medication for hay fever. But this was not Johnston's first troubling encounter in Argentina. The year before the World Cup, during a pre-tournament tour, Johnston was allegedly threatened by local football hooligans, known as Barras Bravas. Johnston claims he was threatened at this time not to return to Argentina. But he didn't listen, and Johnston's expulsion from the tournament was a major scandal. He was one of Scotland's key players, and his absence was keenly felt as the team struggled in the group stages. But the incident sparked outrage back home, with fans and media alike condemning Johnston's actions. The player maintained his innocence, insisting that he had not knowingly taken any performance-enhancing drugs. The fallout from the doping scandal was severe. Johnston was banned from international football, and his club career suffered as well. But the incident also cast a shadow over Scotland's World Cup campaign, which ended in disappointment as they failed to progress past the group stage. The Johnston affair served as a wake-up call for Scottish football. The SFA implemented more rigorous drug testing procedures to prevent similar incidents in the future. But the damage to Scotland's reputation was already done, and the 1978 World Cup remains a dark chapter in the nation's footballing history. Doping scandals were just one issue, but financial scandals also rocked Scottish football. In the late 1990s, Rangers began using employee benefit trusts, also known as EBTs, as a means to pay players and staff. EBTs allowed the club to make tax-free payments, effectively increasing the net pay of their employees without the associated tax liabilities. But this practice provided Rangers with a significant financial advantage, enabling them to attract and retain top talent. The use of EBTs was initially seen as a smart financial maneuver, but it quickly became controversial. Critics argued that it gave Rangers an unfair competitive edge and was essentially a form of financial doping. And the issue came to a head in the mid-2000s when the UK tax authorities, otherwise known as HMRC, began investigating the legality of the scheme, suspecting that Rangers had used EBTs to avoid paying millions in taxes. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that Rangers had failed to disclose the full extent of their EBT payments to the SFA. This lack of transparency raised serious questions about the integrity of the club's financial practices. And the scandal intensified when it was revealed that Rangers had not properly registered several players' contracts, potentially rendering them ineligible to play. The EBT scandal was a major blow to Rangers' reputation. It exposed systemic issues within the club's financial operations and led to widespread condemnation from the footballing community. But the controversy surrounding EBTs set the stage for one of the most dramatic and consequential events in Scottish football history. That's because the EBT scandal was just the beginning of Rangers' troubles. The Rangers tax case culminated in a legal battle between the club and HMRC over the use of EBTs. The courts eventually ruled in favour of HMRC, agreeing that Rangers had indeed avoided paying millions of pounds in tax. The financial difficulties proved insurmountable, and in 2012, Rangers FC was liquidated. The club's assets were sold to a new company, and Rangers had to start from scratch in the third division. This dramatic fall from grace was unprecedented for a club of Rangers' stature, which had been one of the most successful and popular teams in Scotland. The liquidation of Rangers had far-reaching consequences. The club lost many of its top players, and its reputation was severely damaged. But the Scottish footballing landscape was also affected, with questions raised about financial governance and oversight. But despite their eventual return to the Premiership, the legacy of the tax case continues to cast a shadow over Rangers and Scottish football. Financial mismanagement wasn't limited to Rangers though. In 2011, Hearts found themselves in hot water with the SFA over player registrations. The club was hit with a transfer embargo after failing to pay wages on time, leading to a registration ban that prevented them from signing new players. But this situation was a result of ongoing financial difficulties exacerbated by the club's owner, Vladimir Romanov, and his questionable management practices. The registration ban was a significant blow to Hearts, who were already struggling on the pitch. The inability to sign new players meant that the club had to rely on their existing squad and youth players to compete. But this put immense pressure on the team and coaching staff as they tried to navigate a challenging season with limited resources. The financial instability at Hearts was a symptom of deeper issues within the club's management. Romanov's tenure as owner was marked by erratic decisions and a lack of financial prudence. Despite these challenges, Hearts managed to maintain their position in the Scottish Premiership, showing resilience in the face of adversity. But the incident highlighted the broader issues facing Scottish football, as clubs grappled with the pressures of modern financial realities. And financial realities were not the only money problems plaguing Scottish football. The early 2010s saw a series of betting scandals that rocked the game. In 2013, Ian Black, a midfielder for Rangers, was found guilty of placing bets on matches, including some involving his own team. Black received a 10-match ban, with 7 of those suspended and a £7,500 fine. But the scandal tarnished Black's reputation and brought the issue of player betting into sharp focus. The following year, Ayr United's Michael Moffat was found similarly guilty of breaching betting rules. Moffat was handed a 6-match ban and fined £1,200 for placing bets on football matches. In 2015, Rangers goalkeeper Steve Simonson was also caught up in a betting scandal. Simonson admitted to placing 55 bets on football matches, resulting in a 2-match ban. But these consecutive scandals involving high-profile players underscored a systemic issue within Scottish football. The betting scandals had a lasting impact on the sport's reputation, leading to increased scrutiny and stricter enforcement of betting regulations. But they also prompted clubs and governing bodies to implement educational programs aimed at informing players about the risks and consequences of betting. From financial scandals and doping cases to betting violations, these events have exposed systemic issues and highlighted the need for better governance and oversight. But the road to restoring trust has been long and challenging. The perception of Scottish football has been tainted by these controversies. Fans and stakeholders have grown wary of the sport's integrity, with trust in the governing bodies being significantly eroded. On a broader level, these incidents have prompted a re-evaluation of policies and regulations within Scottish football. The SFA and other governing bodies have been compelled to implement stricter measures to prevent future incidents. This includes enhanced financial oversight, more rigorous drug testing, and stricter enforcement of betting regulations. How do you think these scandals have shaped Scottish football? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.